Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. I'll bet when you were a child you heard the aphorism about walking a mile in someone's shoes. It typically went something like, don't judge a person until you have walked a mile in their shoes. How a person reacts to different situations is often shaped by their own circumstances. We may like to think we'd do differently than they did, but if we were in those same circumstances, we might not. We can't judge until we understand, until we have walked a mile in their shoes. This week we are considering Bible stories of forgiveness, and today we come to a story that has always seemed to capture my imagination: the woman caught in adultery. While I have known and studied this story for years, it was only recently that I was challenged to view it from the perspective of the woman. Before we do that, however, let me remind you that in Israel, adultery was a capital crime. If they caught you involved in an illicit relationship outside of marriage like that, they killed you. They threw rocks at you until you died. If you were a woman. That's the kicker in this whole thing, and part of seeing it from her perspective. If you were a man caught in adultery, you were looked down on, to be sure, but they didn't kill you. However, that was the punishment for a woman caught in adultery. Adultery was understood to be the woman's fault. It's not fair. It just was. But if we really want to walk in her shoes, let's remember that when Jesus comes on the scene, the religious leaders have caught this woman in adultery and are preparing to stone her. Imagine what that must have felt like for this woman. She is surrounded by a group of strong, angry men, and she alone is at the center of this mob. She has no power at all. This group of men is about to decide her fate. She is completely at their mercy, and it's clear they don't have any mercy for her. Maybe you've never thought about how frightened and how powerless she was there. Most of us have never been that helpless, and worst, most of us have never been that alone. One of the clear messages that we can draw from this part of the story is perhaps to be a lot more understanding of the vulnerable and the poor and the helpless in our society, and to reach out in mercy more often. So now it's time to get to the part about forgiveness. Jesus comes on the scene, and the religious leaders, who are always trying to trap Jesus, decide to ask him what to do with this sinful woman. If he said let her go, well, that was a violation of their Old Testament laws, and they could denounce Jesus for that. If he said kill her, then they would be able to say all his talk about love and mercy was just talk. They could say he was a hypocritical fraud. I think my favorite part in this story is where Jesus bends down and draws in the sand. Then, without looking up, he quietly says, "The one among you who is without sin can cast the first stone." Then he continued to draw in the sand. I imagine a time of silence as those angry men considered his words. And one of the times I would have liked to have been there is to hear the thud of that first stone dropping to the ground. Jesus' point is clear. We are all sinners, and we justly deserve to have rocks thrown at us too. What we learn is that as we have received forgiveness for our own wrongs, we should give and live forgiveness for those of others. It's not about legalistic rules. It's about people and God's love for them. It's about forgiveness. It's about grace. Every time I tell this story, I hear from people who tell me how meaningful it is for them. So today I'm going to tell it again. There was a priest in the Philippines, a much loved man of God, who carried the burden of a secret sin he had committed many years before. He had repented, but still had no peace, no sense of God's forgiveness. In his parish was a woman who deeply loved God and who claimed to have visions in which she spoke with Christ and he with her. The priest, however, was skeptical. To test her, he said, "The next time you speak with Christ, I want you to ask him what sin your priest committed while he was in seminary." The woman agreed. A few days later, the priest asked, "Well, did Christ visit you in your dreams?" "Yes, he did," she replied. "And did you ask him what sin I committed in seminary?" "Yes." "Well, what did he say?" "He said, 'I don't remember.'" No one threw a rock at that woman, and neither did Jesus. We have a God who loves and forgives. We have a God of grace. Thanks for sharing these moments with me, and remember to let this day belong to God.